UK game retailer, Game, in all caps, is beginning to set up some in-store gaming arenas. They're like doubling down on kind of this idea of in-store gaming arenas. So for those of you that aren't aware, who don't live in the UK and may not purchase games from Game, Game is basically the US version of GameStop, right? Or the UK version of GameStop here in the US.
Yeah. They're a game retailer, like a brick and mortar retail,
right.
Game retailer.
You walk in the door and you buy a game, not digital, not Amazon. No, it's Game. And from what I kind of gather, looking into Game a little bit, was that they're not kind of rolling over like GameStop is. It seems like here in the U.S., GameStop is just sticking to the tried and true method. Like, we're going to sell trade-ins, we're going to let people trade in their games, and then we're going to upcharge for them, and then we're going to sell them back to people. And that's how a lot of the game retailers in the U.S. make their money, is off of trade-ins. That's like their big thing. Like, anyone that works at a GameStop will tell you, like, you have like trade-in incentives to like really push that on people.
And I mean, to be fair, Game was kind of a similar model, right. And when you're in that model, you are so dependent on the on the console cycles.
Right.
So as the consoles, when there's new consoles that come out, a couple of years after a new console comes out and interest is really high, or when console goes on sale, it's so dependent on consoles because of the fact that you traditionally buy a DVD with a game on it or a Blu-ray and play the game on the console. So that's where your trade-ins actually come from.
Right. That and actually selling game consoles.
Right, that too, exactly. And games with it. And then, like, I think especially with those brick and mortar stores, your biggest audience ends up being parents, in my mind.
True.
That's who I imagine is consistently going to like a GameStop or a Game, is parents who are like, oh, I need to get my kid a Christmas gift, or I need to get my kid a new console or whatever. Right. I think that's where a lot of that comes from, and I think Game is starting to try and they're diversifying. They're trying to figure out a way to not be stuck in that console cycle, because I mean, let's be realistic. I think you and I can both agree that
they're hurting bad.
Well, physical, right, exactly, and even the consoles are trying to sell their games digitally now.
I think I only have like 4 physical copies of a game in my house at this point, and everything is on. I have an external hard drive full of stuff now attached to my PlayStation that like I just digitally download it and it stores it on there. And so like I don't feel the need to go to a GameStop, and I kind of loathe it unless I'm going in there just like, maybe I can find a pre-owned version of this game for cheaper than I could, or instead of waiting for it to go on sale, maybe I can just find a pre-owned version of it. But I definitely think the diversification you can see with this kind of like joint venture they're doing with Maplin. And Maplin is kind of like Radio Shack here. Which, I mean, if people have Micro Center, it's kind of like that, too. Where you can go in, you can find a lot of hardware for just about anything you need. Gaming or example. PC, computer-related. But this is kind of bringing the games into Maplin, and so they can pair their hardware with it. And so they're doing this kind of like joint venture where they're trying to like, stick the game, like instead of making someone take 2 stops, oh, you want to go here because maybe Maplin's having a sale on a PlayStation or an Elgato or whatever, now you can just go to Maplin and you're looking for whatever you want, and there's this whole game section there. PC games, everything, like whatever you want. You picked up a new graphics card, might as well get, Battlefield 1 to play in 4K, because why not?
Yeah.
So they're doing this whole like partnership trial where they're sticking some Maplin or some game like sections within the Maplin stores.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and so the Game is really trying to they're not trying to fall behind. They don't want to go extinct, so they're really doing what they can. And I think this partnership is one thing, and then obviously the other big thing is a big investment into their Belong gaming arenas. They get the idea. The concept comes from South Korea, and it almost sounds similar to an internet cafe.
Yeah, it's basically what it is.
Yeah, it's like an internet cafe, but it's not internet. They just have a bunch of, so they put out PCs, and then you pay by the hour to play games on really good PCs and really good. Well, I mean, and whatever the best.
Yeah, I mean, they do consoles, they do virtual reality, they do
right.
And yeah, we had something kind of similar to like that in Atlanta, but it was more of like a pub. You know, it was like a bar.
Right, that was a bar, restaurant, and like game place. And
right.
I think these are just more.
It failed. It just shut down. So we don't have anything like this out here anymore.
What?
Yeah, they had a big like farewell thing for it and everything. It's kind of sad, but that being said, it's I think it's a great idea for them as a gaming company to kind of like bring these belong arenas towards their like gaming venue or their game stores. So now instead of trying to just have your one avenue be like trade-ins and console sales, now you can host events and you start charging people. And instead of just making like a video game store like a walk-in and all the shelves are just lined with boxes, like empty game boxes like we have at GameStop. No, now it's like an experience. You know, you walk in, you may see some people kind of sitting around playing, and then, yeah, they have a wall, like a bigger wall that's kind of like full of stuff. You could say, hey, I want to buy this game. I just played it over here. It's really fun. I want to take it home, play it some more.
It's a great idea. I think it's, like you said, it's it's smart. It's smart way of trying to diversify where your money comes from, but it's also a smart way of getting people to come into your stores. And people are actually going to like be like, oh, I want to go try this new game out on a top spec PC, or on maybe you've got an Xbox One X or an Xbox One and you want to try an Xbox One X or whatever. I mean, it's a great idea. I mean, how else are these companies going to survive? This is a good way for them to kind of find that niche of people who still want to go out and get those games, buy a physical game.
And not to mention, it's hopping on the front end side of esports. It's definitely making like esports a little more accessible. So now, on top of just having the service of saying like, come here, try this out. If you enjoy it, buy it off the shelf. We've got it over there.
Right.
Now you can host tournaments, which you're now bringing people in. You're charging for these tournament fees, and you take a little cut off that, and the rest goes to the prize pool and the tournament coordinator and all of that stuff. And that's great. And I feel like with the way things are going lately, the esports scene is kind of becoming more mainstream. It's a great way to diversify, and it helps the public. It gives people that access to things and helps build a community out of the gaming atmosphere. Because right now,
I think that's 100% right. I think that last point is true also, in the sense that gaming and competitive gaming in the United States and in the UK is not like what it is in a lot of parts of Asia. The access is
because
so
they have
great.
communities.
Exactly. Access into like tournaments and actual competitive gaming events is so much more difficult here. There's tournaments happening everywhere. You can make a living. You can be a guy making $30,000-$40,000 a year playing StarCraft 2.
Off of just prize money.
And you don't have to be the best in the world. You can just be a guy who's going out to local tournaments and he's pretty good, you know? He's good enough to win some tournaments. So I think we don't have anything like that in the West. There's nothing even similar.
Right. I mean, we do, but it's so small.
That's what I mean.
Scale.
You can't make a living. You either you made it or you didn't, you know?
Yeah, I have a buddy who has recently started hosting Super Smash Brothers tournaments, and I like sold him my Wii U so that he could go set it up, and he's like taking this card shop, right? This whole like tabletop and like Magic the Gathering card shop, and has built like, they gave him like what used to be like their storage closet that's basically like a small room, that he cleared it out for him and started putting TVs and everything in there. He got a little investment from another guy that was interested, and they're starting to like do these tournaments themselves like in a card shop, and that's cool. But it's not the same community.
Well, I think that's a start. To be
tabletop and video gaming, right? But what I'm getting at is like they don't really mesh. There's a lot of people, yes, that do have the crossover, but there's some people.
A lot of people that don't.
that judge those card players, those people that come in and play D&D or play Warhammer or play Magic or Pokemon cards, any of that, they kind of judge them, and they kind of get this like backlash of like, oh, you're a nerd, it's cool to play video games, you're a nerd if you're playing card games. And so like the communities don't really mesh all the time.
I don't think it's. I agree. I don't think it's too bad, but I don't know. Like, I hope there's not a bunch of gamers going out to like comic places and being like nerds. It's like, you're a nerd, dude.
Picture this in your head, right? Picture a Call of Duty tournament happening the same day there's a Magic the Gathering tournament.
Okay, I see your point. I see your point.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying?
I don't disagree with your point. I think that. I think I agree with the point you're trying to get at, which is that it makes way more sense to have these tournaments in game stops or game locations, right, instead of having them at like comic book places. Like, I agree with you. I think comic book places have a niche. That niche is like physical collectibles mostly. It's like freaking Warhammer, Magic the Gathering, these types of tabletop games versus. GameStop is a place that you associate, and game is a place you associate with video games. So it makes sense that they would want to actually push to have a more kind of like tournament feel. I have been to a GameStop tournament once, actually. Now I'm thinking about it. But
how many times does it just turn out that it's a bunch of people standing around two TVs?
That's what it was, right? It's exactly what it ended up being. And it's also like, it's not comfortable. And that's just like one local. That's not a concerted effort to get esports to be more popular. That's just like the local franchise GameStop was like, oh yeah, we'll host a little like Smash Brothers tournament. It wasn't like
right. That's what I've seen too. Is like Super Smash Bros in a GameStop, and then they give them like $100.
It's not like we've got 10 top of the line PCs in here. And we're ready to have, over like not necessarily Overwatch, but we're ready to have like a freaking HOTS or StarCraft 2 tournament or Heroes of the Storm or Dota 2 tournament or League of Legends. Oh, right. It's like, okay, here's 10 computers, we have enough, or 12 computers, we have enough to have 2 teams.
I don't know. I think it's a great idea. I think we need to start seeing something like that in America.
I think that's the beginning. That's how you get. If you want the West to be competitive in the future in esports, which I think esports is becoming. We had a story a couple weeks ago about esports being in the Olympics. I think that esports are becoming a much more serious endeavor than what people once saw them as, and I think that we need to take it more seriously if people in the gaming community want to actually see like the Western countries continue to be successful. I think that there's still a lot of success here because there's still a lot of people who you don't need to necessarily have it yet, but if you want the pool to be grown, if you want your youth to actually have a real shot, it's something that we should invest in, and I'm glad to see Game doing it, and I hope to see more video game retailers kind of follow in their footsteps.
Right. I think it will happen because I think that this is going to work for Game, and then GameStop or whoever you get your games from out here is going to catch wind of it, and then it's going to turn into a whole thing.
Hopefully it does. Hopefully it does work out for Game. I mean, hey, in the last 52 weeks, Game doubled their revenues from their esports and digitals.
Flat out.
Doubled up. So
I would like to start seeing GameStop lounges pop up.
Yeah, something like that would be cool.
Something comfortable where I can go sit on a couch, play a PS4K or an Xbox One, compete in a tournament. I think that'd be really cool, and I think it would promote a lot of, esports in the U.S. I think it'll promote a lot more of a community sense around your local game store, and it'll take these brick-and-mortar stores that you used to just walk in, buy a game, trade in your old ones. It would make it like a hub instead of just
exactly.
and
I think
stop on your way home.
I mean, imagine like a small, like a smaller city or a smaller town. Their local GameStop, like that could become a place that gamers could go and hang out and create their own little community and a place where they can actually hang out in real life and not just online. And so that's,
I think they need to have bigger stores. You need to stop putting GameStops in a shopping center and maybe buy out like an old Longhorn or something.
No, you know what they should buy out? Like, what would be the perfect place to put GameStops?
Kmart?
Blockbusters. Old Blockbusters would be perfect.
Perfect size.
You have
they've already got the shelves.
Exactly. You got the shelves you can put, and then you can get rid of some shelves and throw computers. I mean, it's perfect. You just go get some GameStop. Go get some Blockbusters. What are you doing with your lives?